also interested to know, how did God come to be? And there's an interesting quote: "Is man one of God's blunders, or is God's one of man?" by Friedrich Nietzsche. Another popular quote is yeah, man created God out of his own image, and no, I can't remember any others for now. But the truth is that we take this for granted in everyday lingo, but all concepts in human language, and human language is a inventive tool for humans. So when you have intangible concepts and intangible, abstract and arbitrary words to define intangible concepts, expect things not to be, expect confusion along the way, because, we don't define ourselves, as atheists don't define themselves by what they're not or not involved in. Like, I won't wake up tomorrow morning thinking, here's another great day for me, for I'm a non tarot card reader. I'm not a tarot card reader, but we don't define ourselves by what we're not, really. Like, we define ourselves by elements of what we are, I suppose. So, who and what we are. And I think it was Thomas Jefferson who said it. It is a strange. It's the most strange religion set up in the world, to think that mankind has to redeem himself from committing the sins of eating an apple by doing a murder on Jesus Christ. And that's a valid point to draw attention to for a number of reasons. Put that in. What the question is, if one of the primary causes, if not the primary cause, for the health decline in the bisexual health rights movement, statistically, what's it going to take to ensure that there's a fairness there and not a statistical wounding, a wound of statistics in the bisexual health right, which is only a 60s originating movement, starting with men like David Bowie and singers like Patti Smith in the 60s. Though I wouldn't suspect for a second that no. Sorry, another one is does God created everything, it goes, the universe exists, something had to create the universe, and therefore that something might as well is God. And the reply to that can be, well, okay, yeah, what you said it. Everything does have to come from something. So the universe, if the universe has to come from something, then you've said that something is God. And you ask them back, well, where did God come from? And then they'll say, oh, nowhere. God, no one or nothing created God. God's always been. And then in reply, you can say to that, well, then it seems like not everything needs to come from something else after all. So this is a theological argument called the argument from first cause. Now, or the prime mover argument, which deists adopted with that title, but the argument from the prime mover. Only in calling this the prime mover a god, they insisted this was a deistic god, not a theistic god. Deistic god is you don't pray. They're not interventionary, so deistic gods. So you would not pray to a deistic god. You would not worship a deistic god. All the religious practices that were observatory to to this young man. Wow, I'm really tired. So, in looking at the Human Rights Act again, which I recall doing in childhood, this employer ruined everything for me in the end, because the start was for him to greet me, in his terms, he was greeting me into his company with the statement, you were sexually embarrassed by your father. Now, at that point, I'd had one biological father and 2 stepfathers. So in the first instance, I didn't comprehend what he meant by that statement, that I was sexually embarrassed by my father. I'd actually, as I'd gotten out of church and was exiting Christianity, I'd thought he meant that contemplating the Heavenly Father of the Christian Bible had embarrassed the shit out of me, which if that's what he meant, I'd thought, well, yeah, okay, well, thanks for bringing that up, but I am a deconvert. But it turned out he meant one of the fathers I've known through my mum's marriages. Yet I had no idea of the particular scenario he was referring to. I've worked out that because of Genesis, the book of Genesis, he's, I only wish he'd said from the start that though I'm a scientist and a monopolist in pharmacy, I myself am some form of Christian believer, because if he'd said that at the start of my career with Capital Chemist, my career with Capital Chemist would have lasted about a month. I'd trusted a few people who seemed open-minded with the assertion that I'm atheistic, without God belief. But yeah, it turned out that he was talking about some moment in my family, and I have no idea what it was. He never said either. And I can remember being after going to a police camp called Camp Saul, which I was sent to because using a badminton racket, I had hit some peach stones over the fence into the neighbor's yard. He used to collect them and knock on the door and hand them back to me in a pot
like an empty plant pot, he never made a complaint to me and said, like, I think what you're doing is rude, can you stop hitting peaches over my fence? Granted, I maybe should have known not to do that at that age, but he didn't confront me with the complaint. If he had of, I would have gone, sure. But because of that, I was sent on a experimental camp called Camp Saul, which, as you can tell from its title, has a Christian ring to it again, because Saint Paul was known as Saul of Tarsus before he had a vision of Jesus and became Paul. So the goal of this police retreat camp was to take teens and young people that were seen to be going off the rails. Once again, we have some conjecture at play, because if the neighbor or my mother had said just stop hitting peach stones over the fence, I'd have said okay. But instead, once again, my mum kind of panicked and overreacted and sent me on this camp with the police. It wasn't because of misbehaviors that I was afraid of being on a camp in the custody of police. This was while I was living at Cowdery Place, Monash, near the Monash shops. And they sent me on this camp to the Wee Jasper region. During the week that we were there, we did a number of things. We first went on an 18-kilometer hike from the campsite and back to the campsite. Then the day after that, we went caving. So I had overalls on, and we walked through caves that were lined with bat guana, bat shit, and went caving, which was quite fun. I made friends with some, you might call them juvenile delinquents. I was the youngest kid there, and some of the other teens and young adults that had been brought to this camp had done things like graffiti, vandalize, or smash windows of local shops and things like that. So they would all tell me their stories about why the police wanted to take them on this behavior reforming camp. And it turned out that out of all of us, I had the most innocent story. They were like, so all you did was hit fruit over the fence, and there wasn't even a complaint or a discussion with your parents? They just sent you on this camp? And I was like, yeah, pretty much. So because that Camp Saul was the first of its kind, a kind lady from the ABC network, a reporter by the name of Donna, was assigned to give media coverage to the camp and to what it does. And I can remember having a lot of reservations. Like, I took one look at the pit toilet during the day, and if you lift the lid up at a campsite on a pit toilet, you look down and see this mountain of everyone's shit. And it disgusted me so much that I made a promise to myself not to piss or shit for the duration of the camp. But that was a number of days, and I think I lasted maybe 36 hours before I eventually pissed on a bush. I remember eating a lot of condensed milk out of tubes on this camp. But I spent most of my free time, I was just a little kid, and I'd just chill with this ABC News reporter, Donna, and sit in her lap, and I was her little favourite on the camp. The day after the caving at Wee Jasper, we went abseiling, so we abseiled over a cliff with a harness and long rope. I remember the adrenaline rush from it. I really didn't want to do it at first, but halfway down the cliff I kind of started to enjoy it. Then on the day before returning home, all three activities were merged into one event, which was to walk a long distance to a different cave. A cave that had a roof on the ground, so we had our overalls on again, and we We walked a long distance to the cave, abseiled into the cave, and then did another caving session. And this woman Donna did coverage of the whole camp, and I remember sitting by the radio at my old house on Cowdery Place, Monash, near Monash Ridge, and listening out for Donna's ABC broadcast. And she said, there was a young boy who I absolutely fell in love with. He was not the best behaved at home, but and she complimented me over the radio, and I recorded her report. And yeah, she was really lovely, but I was a little intimidated even at that age by being in police company, because I even felt that they were going too far in, it factors into why I'm against being prayed for, because if you're with a Christian and they're saying to you, well, I'd like to pray for you, and then, they've got their smile, they've got their closed eyes, and they put their hand on you, and they're saying, dear God, help Luke out with his problems. Like, they aren't, I'm happy to discuss the nuances of genuine problems with a person, but I find prayer to be deceitful and, in a way, predatory, because the person praying isn't telling you to your face what they think the case is that they want to see a resolution to. So I don't see them as being really honest, because they're not telling you to your face what their opinions are, what their case is, and they're not permitting you the option to respond to them. It's like it's like a pseudo dialogue. So yeah, and now looking back, I imagine that these cops were possibly Christians as well, given that the name was Camp Saul. I'm not sure if that was their attitude. Let's take these naughty Sauls and turn them into glorious Pauls. But yeah. So on my Facebook, it's got, I quote Marilyn Manson, my Baptist, and I quote his quote from the Antichrist Superstar era, where he talks about being opposed to the fascism of the police state mentality and the fascism of Christianity, and in many respects they're the same thing. Now, that opposition is not because of any desire to have dangerous or criminal intentions. It's because we don't think in the same language as the police. We think about rights, rights to free expression, rights to life, to move, to work, courtship rights. And, I guess comprehending my own courtship rights is what Capital Chemist's management kind of corked. And I was forever worried that what my employer had said to me was something he was saying to other employers or other bosses, because they always had this element of awkwardness around me. I'd just be standing still watching it. It's amazing the type of either things being said to them about you behind your back, or they're making superficial judgments of you based on how you look or whatever. But my former employer's definition of a homosexual, he says, your responsibility comes from the rebellion against your own sexuality. And that just absolutely has always confused me. Yeah, I don't understand that definition of a gay person. I would think a gay person is just a person whose sexual orientation prefers members of the same sex, same gender as them. Not that there's some, war of internal rebellion against a person's own self and sexuality. And so I listened to this man say this to me at work, and because he would talk about, how precise his study of the mind is, he had even left me with the impression that he'd measured this of me and he knew this about me, even though to this day I haven't participated in a genuine homosexual sex act. Not that that's anyone's business, but yeah, I just think it's rude. It's in place of those sorts of confrontations and dictations, a pharmacy assistant should be receiving training and an investment in their education pertaining to the profession of pharmacy, not getting your court clocked by a boss. They should be teaching you about pharmacotherapeutics and your job, your profession, how to expand your qualifications as a dispensary tech. This man is just, he's atrocious, Think about, who are you if you want to be a leader of a group of people and you want to talk about their childhood, you want to talk about their sex orientation, you want to tell them they're not supposed to sleep with girls, when really you're just going, I'm on a shitty $15 an hour award wage, teach me about fucking pharmacy or shut your face. I can obviously see this man as some sort of really, like, he's certainly freakier in terms of his grey matter than I am in any of the ways that I dress and appear, my aesthetic, which has no one goal behind it. It's not to attract attention. It's not to it's just expressionism and dressing how I feel on a particular day. I did notice that with Capital Chemist dinners and meetings, workplace gatherings, if I appeared dressed up in cosmetics, a lot of the gay bashing seemed to stop. And Marilyn would talk a little bit about that in his one of his journals called The Oracle back in 2003. He talks about wearing, red lipstick to control men. I don't think he meant that in any sort of seductive way, or if he was alluding to wanting to appear physically attractive. No one wants to look physically attractive to someone who's sexually harassed them, but it did seem to shut them up a bit. They stopped going, oh, you're a poof, once I started dressing up like Bowie. And anyway, that's the crux of my problem with employers doing that. And then there was the violence innuendo, like, if you're taught that your genetics are making decisive actions for you, it's, I guess it's a bit like deterministic philosophy, but willpower is something I certainly affirm. I like notions of willpower. Is one thing I really like out of Nietzschean philosophy, German philosophy to an extent. I'm a segregatist in the sense that I love individualism, but there's no one person who I take after or consider to be the perfect example in every single possible way. I don't think any individual thinks that way about anyone. We all have our differences. But I was definitely offended by this speech that genetics were predetermining of, my every move, and that my genetics could cause me to commit, violence or human rights abuse without me even knowing it. That was essentially the game that they were playing. It completely corked my sense of workplace safety, because they needed to be saying the opposite to that to me, because they're already a private sector company, but I was going, well, you're clearly violating my privacy rights constantly in the name of some sort of workplace check. But they were misconstruing art that I love, and thinking the same old fickle arguments that Korn's song lyrics gonna make you go out and misbehave, and in doing so they assume you're not smart enough to contextualize their songs and think to yourself, well, I like this Korn song because it seems to be rebuking God, and it's about a lot of the hate that can be caused from belief in God. Marilyn Manson, in the Antichrist era of his career, said that he said, we will right the bill of wrongs. And on one level, I interpret Doppelherz as his fulfillment of that statement, to right the bill of wrongs. He also wants to help end Christianity. And I think that's great. I mean, it says in the credits to Doppelherz that it's, in a sense, it's his last words. But if you study his albums, and you've got Portrait of an American Family in 1994, which is rehashed into an EP, Smells Like Children, 1995. So most of the songs on Smells Like Children are remixes of songs from Portrait of an American Family, with the exception of two songs, the Eurythmics cover of Sweet Dreams, and the song Rock and Roll Nigger by Patti Smith, which I understand, I think Canadian police wanted to arrest him for singing Rock and Roll Nigger, even though it's spelled Niggar. And it was deemed to apparently have been a racist song, when it's really about just people who are on the outside of society, as he explained in interviews. So I'm not sure if this old boss liked to be misleading. I mean, while I was still working at Tuggeranong, he bought me a Gurkha knife. He just gave me this Gurkha knife, smiling, after telling me violence was caused by genes. And I was just left thinking, why do you want me to have a Gurkha knife? Why is that a present from you? At work, you've called me fresh meat. You've said violence is caused by genes. You've run a police check on me prior to me working for you, so you obviously know a thing or two about my early childhood. And that was a constant frustration because of these bosses' stance on genetics and causality. They never really asked me what it was like to have been in the step families that I was in throughout my teens. And I found that interesting, because if you're growing up and your genes are growing and expressing as you're going through childhood and puberty and adolescence and all of that, then surely my genes were, there was gene expression going on physically within my body, while I had a family of, a stepfather and 6 step siblings. So was my company with them and living with them and going to the coast with them and listening to art with them and playing Nintendo with them, and okay, they weren't blood relations, but if your genes are expressing as you're growing up, why weren't they, and why wasn't my stepfather, who's surname I still keep. Why did that not count as the constitution of my genetics during my growth, childhood and adolescence? Why are they ruled out? That's what that they were the conversations that never happened in Capital Chemist. They never said, well, who was Keith Banton, your stepfather, like? What sort of a man was he? What values did he teach you? What sort of a person was towards you? So consequently, it felt like getting regressed, and concerning 1989 and the feud between my biological parents, that was actually stopped by Keith Banton. He saved both my blood parents' lives. So why wasn't it acknowledged that I admired him for that? Instead, it was constantly genetics this, genetics that, and it was as if they had completely ignored all my step relations, with everything they said, which felt like getting regressed while being at work. So I obviously found that to be very offensive and nosy. So yeah, that's a very disappointing element to private sector pharmacy, is trying to serve sick people while being made to feel like a plaything or an experiment yourself. That's why, yeah. So now here I am on a DSP, socializing with some people I used to serve at the counter, and yet their company feels emotionally more genuine, sincere, less contrived or atrocious than my pharmacy training. So yeah, I need a holiday, but these journals, these visual journals, will do for now. I'll be getting new carpet quite soon. I haven't decided on the color yet, so I'm gonna be decorative with this carpet. Fuck, shit, ass, bitch, cunt, shibbity do up, words like that. Christopher Reeve, quote Eminem. Ah, look, another all-nighter.
So you can ask the Christians, tell me, what are you a prodigy of? Um, Incest in a garden, followed by violent biphobia. I'll go, no, that's not it. Look into outer space. There's no heaven and other planets. Yeah, but don't you want to not go to the Earth's core and mantle? Yeah. But the unfortunate thing in Canberra is that these Freemasons who think they are psychoanalytic geniuses are just undereducated religious bigots who should not they should not themselves consider themselves intelligent enough to officiate or comprehend disputes or differences, because there's just so many differences between their own stupid religion and the celebration of the Rights Charter that they'll instinctively take interest in people who defend the Rights Charter and oppose religious discrimination. Only they'll do it as apparently as scientists, alleged scientists. It was the constant process of, you more or less, like in the lyrics to the song 5 Years by Bowie, you feel like you're acting. More sincerity is truly demonstrated by the customers. But you watch, get sick or get sick from the work, sick of the work. The last thing they'll ever want to even discuss is that those causes are valid. Must have been something during the cell division when your fetus was gestating, or early child. It's always child. Break a leg in a Capital Chemist store, and they'll say that's the expression we mean for, perform well. I actually broke a leg. It must have been from childhood, weakened in childhood, surely. No. I remember my former bosses describe Roger and Gary as people who, actually, well, it was only Roger at the time, someone he was afraid of, and not being of any interest to them in their occurring thoughts was actually one of the most appealing prospects to departure from the group, and O'Connor and the group in very early in 2010. But I've learned. Then I went on to learn some bizarre things about their sense of curiosity and just how weird it is, because it ties in with their religious bias, which you don't see that for what it is either until such later moments. But you need only be non-religious, non-biphobic, and like art, and they will preclude you to be
a Christian, repressed Christian, or something susceptible to their sort of idealistic martyrdom. I think yeah, Manson is definitely better at martyring than I think the two of them combined. They I mean, confusing Christianity with like antichrist atheism. It's batshit nuts. The new word for them, for when they go to the Mason church next, is anthropomorphic. It refers to human-like agency, attributing human-like agency to non-human phenomena. You know, like if you were walking down the street and you stub your toe on a rock on the ground, and then you spend the next 10 minutes huffing and puffing, kicking the rock, yelling at it, yelling obscenities at it, going, "Nah, you stupid fucking rock! You had to ruin my day, didn't you?" You know, to do so, such as that, it would be to anthropomorphize the rock. You essentially comprehend human-like characteristics, like a human mind, to be within that rock. So, and this isn't yet another reason why Freemasonry is not really any more impressive to me than Christianity. A little bit, as I've already said, Lucifer is a cooler character to the Christian God, but once supernatural, anthropomorphic, theistic beings are ruled out, once the principle by which you arrived at ever precluding their existence in the first place, like with a church leap of faith, you know, just take a leap of faith and believe in God, and you realize there's true errancy in that type of thinking. So you start to describe some of those errors to yourself. And in my case, I came to the conclusion that the leap of faith itself, that process, is just it's intensive assumption. And you know, if a claim is more distinguished from day-to-day realism, if it's a claim, an information claim of a kind that is set apart from everyday knowledge and information, then it should have more. It should require more justification and evidence, not less, than normal claims, day-to-day claims, like. Not even less to none at all, to evidence against, but believe it anyway.
Expanding our sensibility of what we have called transcendence, grace, love, compassion, and as we do this, I think that there is being created in the world and time today a very unique and
So if you've worked out, that's what I have to hold to in the work to go around the world. That there's a new story. I mean, let's take Nick, for example. Yeah, no Christian that you meet will tell you they have a problem with you not believing in Odin and Zeus and Thor, and aliens and, you know, thousands of supernatural theistic entities. So I suppose this Masonic, you know, isn't the devil cooler than the biblical God? Yeah.
Sitting next to me, she said, "Oh, I don't like Princess Sita. She's much too passive. We women in India were much stronger than that."
They're as non-existent as one another. So
8,000 years old. It's all about reason why you have to change it. My name is
Thomas the Tank Engine
my husband thinks he's wrong. He's a lazy bunny.
has
And
a Gumby.
I was watching the changing of stories in its mythic structure. The story is moving.
It's more probable that they
I
exist.
think it's moving to men and women together as part of the heroic journey. I think it's moving to people in many, many different cultures, and it is about the saving, if you will, of this beautiful critical moment in human history. And that's the new story.
So yeah, you will see throughout the histories of religion that the more phenomena in nature that wasn't accounted for in terms of causalistic processes, then the more that such phenomena was described by appeal to the concept of a supernatural being. So nothing was known about rain, precipitation in clouds, and so believers thought there was a rain god, or if not a rain god, then just a general, like omnimax, theistic god. And if you prayed properly to that god, then you would have rainfall. If that god approved of you, then your crops would grow.
Most of which you don't want to defend on this stage, but why use the word God? Why not just talk about that? Just it's an acronym.
Yeah, so then you see therefore in history that just as knowledge advanced and science advanced, more and more phenomena became describable and described, and the constant opposition was religion, theistic religion, where the religious activists didn't like what it represented for causalistic processes to move in on what was considered to be the Lord's terrain. And so a certain chunk of causalistic processes usurping the need for appeal to a theistic God claim from one generation to the next. It's the same trend where there's resistance from the religious, there's contest from the religious, there's the religious calling the naturalist demonic or working for the devil or possessed. And so then there's just, yeah, they may not have good argumentative comebacks, but there's resistance to accept their cases. And then the next generation comes along, and by then the causalistic processes are just, they seem more common sense, and that there'd be no point in making big issues about disputing them, since the disputes never equal, much less outweigh the substance of the I'm watching this debate.
Nowhere in that range do you get real equity and real compassion and real understanding between the sexes. And that's, to get that, you have to...
I'd like to promote a website called wisdomofchopra.com. If you go there, it's no spaces, one long word, Wisdom of Chopra. And it's a quote generator of quotes from Deepak Chopra. He's an MD and a theologian, and he's quite new age. But the designers of this website found some formula to make a random quote generator for Chopra style quotes, and they're always amusing.
I mean, some point in time to try to get down and responding to one another, and so on.
Hello. It is 2:28 a.m. and I'm at a bus stop, which there are no buses running, so I just bus stops they always whether I'm on a bus or near a bus stop, they always remind me of being a kid, and my stepfather would often occasionally I would get into a bus close to the end of his shift, and once all the passengers had left the bus, I was free to use the rails as like monkey bars. So on the drive back to the interchange, when my stepfather dropped the bus back to the bus interchange at Tuggeranong, I could monkey bar swing on the bars from the drive from the final stop to the back to the interchange for the return of the bus, the bus to the interchange. Now, I just lost the last. The deterioration, as I've already said in a couple of other clips, is getting an overhaul in how it's arranged. It's how its content's arranged within the parameters of a given episode. I have on the uploaded episode list 21 episodes approximately, but episode 37 is built, and I've made new introductory title credits. I'm essentially playing a character who is in a bind of sorts because his ability to have information contextualized has not been recognized. So everything's therefore been made into a puzzle. So the episodes of Deterioration are also a puzzle, and they're going to become more of a puzzle in the sense that non-linear arrangements of content from here on will be the sort of format arc. What I'm hoping that will mean is that those who watch it, who are watching the episodes in order, there's still something to be said about, watch it in order in terms of the episode numbers, but you'll start to go what the, because everything's now going to be more scattered and non-linear. You'll see a part of a topic, a discussion on a certain topic, and then it'll skip to a whole another fragment of another discussion from another topic from another day, and it's going to be a mess. And I guess some thought to it, and I thought, I really want it to be a mess because it might mean that the experience of realizing the insights that Deterioration has to offer are attainable, but only if you've given a certain amount of concentrative effort to making sense of all the fragmented pieces. So now 4 minutes. Okay. So those who are, I have a favorite film of mine, which is Marilyn Manson's Doppelhers. I have it on the channel, as you can see, and it's very special to me. And so, in a way, it's like the show is the last words of kind of a beaten character that couldn't really be. And so, and you can figure by now that's got to do with the words of people like my former employer who are freely insulting quite regularly, and this Freemason church. But I don't want him to be a main character, because
not after, you know. Why would I want him to be a main character if I couldn't even be a character, be myself, working in his job, in his franchise. So those with collective sort of minds who are assessing all the fragmented conversations might have some sort of I was trying to think how could I offer a sort of epiphanous experience, and that might be possible in the event that a person is dealing with all the fragmented topics in the right way, so there's a sort of a click where they go, oh, and then but it'll be anyway. What I will say things like in the third episode, I think it was, I was at Claire's and there was a gold filter over a dialogue, and there were no words. I didn't notice this until the episode got uploaded to the channel itself. I went, what the fuck? What happened to that conversation? It was muted. You just see me for a few minutes moving my lips, and there's no word. Now I didn't take the conversation out of that segment, so I can't say what I want to say in a forthright manner, and I can't say why I can't say what I want to say in a forthright manner either. So we're going to go the John Gray, Straw Dogs, Thoughts on Humans and Other Animals, the book. Are human beings enduring beings, or are they a succession of fragments? And he spends quite a bit of time saying we might just be a succession of fragments. So I thought, what if there are scattered fragments from now on, which will be from episode 38. Which is really episode 39, because the pilot is episode 0. But, yeah. So it's going to be more like, people who don't have the right sort of questioning mind aren't going to have the click. And those that are will. I hope. This is Shell service station at Dixon. I just saw my friend Wayne, who runs the servo, and yeah. Anyway, let's stop this. 8 minutes. The bus stop.